Hi, everyone. We're going to give it a couple of minutes just to give others time to join. We'll be back with you soon. Okay, thanks everybody for joining. I think we're ready to get started here. So welcome to attending the webinar on Insight Analytics, and thanks for joining. My name is Kim Larson. I'm the Director of Business Development for North America. And our session today is going to be led by CTGlobal founder and MVP, Kent Augerland. He's going to go over Insight Analytics, explain what it is, how it works, and also give you a demo. Should anyone have any questions during our session, please put them in the chat window and we will address it during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. For those of you who do not know who we are, CTGlobal is a consultancy based out of Copenhagen, Denmark, with additional offices in Norway, Benelux, the Baltics, and the United States. Our consultancy is primarily focused on Microsoft technologies, including cloud, data center, security, and our topic for today, Insight Analytics. Please enjoy the presentation. There's going to be time for Q&A, as I mentioned, and we're happy to answer questions and concerns during that time. Thank you so much. Kent, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Kim. So first of all, thanks for all attending. I see we have attendees from all over the globe here. So good morning and good afternoon. So as Kim was saying, I'm going to take you through Insight Analytics and a little background information about why we came up with Insight Analytics. We've been doing consulting for about 20 years, and doesn't really matter how good we solve our projects. Whenever we walk out the door, there will often be questions once we're gone. Like, you know, the manager needs to know this, procurement needs to know that, and so on and so forth. And it took us a little while to realize that, hey, we have a wealth of information from the various systems in your organization, but they're not being exposed, they're not being shown in any of the services that are coming out of Microsoft, you know. So you might have Configuration Manager, but it's not showing everything you need. You might have Intune, it's not showing everything you need. You might have Active Directory, and so on and so forth. So we were like putting our heads together and said, hey, we need to do something about it. And that was really the beginning of the journey of Insight Analytics. So that's just a little background. I'm going to take you through some of the main topics that we encounter when we walk into our customers. And then, as Kim was saying, if you have any questions, please just ask them in the Q&A, and we will have time at the end. So what if you knew that you were losing intellectual property, and what is intellectual property to you? What we have seen, especially when we have done Windows 10 projects, is we are starting to introduce OneDrive, and OneDrive has all of your super important company data. But what happens if you're not really synchronizing OneDrive? What happens if you don't have information about synchronizations that are failing? Then once you're re-imaging that device, or if you lose that device, you also lose or potentially lose a lot of intellectual data belonging to the organization. And we have seen that. So providing you with insight into, for instance, OneDrive or other synchronization data folders is super duper important. We also know about WannaCry. We heard that was introduced to, unfortunately, a lot of organizations last year. WannaCry and Petya and so on. And those examples, when that happens, lightning strikes super fast. It's over before you can even blink, or before you can shut down your servers or your workstations. So we want to know ahead of time if we are protected, if we are vulnerable, and having insights into that is also crucial. And I'll show you how we get that insight. Another thing we run into is we are burning money by the hour. We just don't know it. Once in a while, when you go to lunch, you might run into an end user, and the end user might start complaining about Outlook crashing all the time. You didn't know that. You didn't know that Outlook might have crashed 15,000 times in the entire organization within the last 3 weeks. Maybe you don't know that your devices are blue screening, all of the devices that you have, the new models that you just deployed to every user in Asia Pacific. And each blue screen is costing like 15 minutes of work. So without having insights into numbers like that, we're just burning money by the hour without being able to do anything about it. With Insight Analytics, we will be able to provide you with that data. So we will calculate the number of work hours you have lost to a blue screen. We'll do the same for application crashes. We'll gather all the blue screens that you have had on any given device. We'll also identify the blue screen. So we'll figure out exactly what's causing that blue screen to happen. Is it a specific driver? If it is a specific driver, then we can also assist you, dynamically updating those drivers, and then hopefully lower your cost that way. Another example that we have seen is also a desktop boot up time. Users are often complaining about it takes like forever to start my PC, and you go like, okay, so how long is forever? And they reply, well, that's like forever ever, and that's really hard to do anything about. Now, what we're doing here, and as you can see here in my slide deck, is that we're tracking startup time, and we're also tracking login time. And the startup time is telling me, how good of a device do you have? How much memory do you have? How quickly from you turn on the power until you get the logon screen? The login time tells me and provides us with a lot of insight about your network infrastructure, because the login time is from the time a user enters her password until the device is ready, and that being the device is ready to work on. And sometimes that can take, we have seen locations in Europe where it took like 88 seconds, and then the same organization we had in Japan where it took more than 4 minutes, and it turned out to be DNS misconfiguration. It turned out to be infrastructure not configured correctly. So the users from Japan were downloading and being authenticated over the network, which is the WAN network, which is definitely not what we want. So having insights into this will help us spot some of those hidden costs that we have. And furthermore, we also look at the impact applications will have on performance. So we will identify the applications and see how many of them are starting up automatically when an end user starts the laptop or desktop. And when we talk about impact, that will be the impact on the CPU or the impact on I/O. So putting all of those numbers together and comparing them, city by city or maybe hardware model by hardware model, gives us a lot of valuable insight into, how everything is performing. And hey, it should all be performing, exactly the same, but it's not. Another thing is, well, we don't know what we don't know. It's always like that in life, and we do have a lot of blind spots. So often when we have an issue, well, we're spending a lot of time troubleshooting. We might get consultants in, and they spend a lot of time troubleshooting, but they might not be looking in the right spot, and that's often the case. So some of the things that we have seen is, how many GPO processing errors do you actually have? And a GPO processing error, that's a group policy. Group policies are something we have been using for the last 20 plus years, and they are usually rock solid, and they have a good reputation. But that's only because no one has really been looking into, how many errors are we getting. So what we're doing here is we're identifying how many errors you have. We will identify the domain controller. We will identify the group policy object itself. And if you're having software update patch errors, those might actually relate or be related to a GPO processing error. So a lot of other errors, security settings not being applied and so on, can be tracked down to GPO errors. So without having insights into this, sometimes you might be fighting in the dark and wasting time. I also mentioned the OneDrive for Business Sync one. We have it in here as well because it is one of our blind spots. We honestly, we often do not know if our end users are synchronizing or if they're not synchronizing. And sometimes we don't even know if they're using OneDrive for Business or if they're just using their personal OneDrive. And end users certainly do not know it. We have seen cases where a C-level person got her new laptop, and all of a sudden none of her data were there, and that's not a happy place, right? But it turned out that she stored all of her data in her personal OneDrive. She didn't know that because she didn't know the difference between a personal OneDrive and OneDrive for Business. So when she got a new laptop, that only had OneDrive for Business, obviously, and no data at all. So that took like 3 or 4 hours, and a lot of mails going back and forth, and some unhappy person. So being able to track that, hey, it's only OneDrive for Business that we're using, and we're using it without any issues, that's super important, and that's really one of our blind spots. Another blind spot example can be certificates. Well, we all want to be as secure as possible, and a certificate is installed on a device, and it will grant me access to something. Maybe it grants me access to my VPN, maybe to my mail. Sometimes those certificates expire and we don't know about it, and when that happens, all of a sudden, no one can access VPN any longer, and it might take a day to figure that out. Again, we might need to call a consultant that needs to spend some time investigating, and then it's just a certificate. So we'll collect information about that as well, and we do collect a lot of other data, and I'll show you in just a few seconds here. So if you would like to know if our company data is at risk, if users are losing productive time, and if our clients are not patched, then the whole idea and our promise with Insight Analytics is that hey, you know what? You would already know that. That should not come as a surprise. So that's our promise. So Insight Analytics, it's a visualization platform. So I'll show you the visualization platform in just a second. It's a dashboard residing in Azure, but we also provide you with 50 plus custom reports that you will have on premise, and there is a good reason for that. Because when you're on premise, you can expose all the data about your clients that you want to expose. You know, they are not leaving your on-premise environment. We don't want to expose all of that in Azure or in any other cloud. It's also a data gathering tool. So we can have multiple connectors. Again, I will show you quickly in a demo, but a connector will simply just connect the visualization platform to a data source. And the data source that I'm going to show you will be the SCCM data source, but it could also be a data source that will hook up with Microsoft Graph, give you Office 365 Intune data, and it could also be a custom connector. So if you have a custom SQL database and you want to grab some information in there and visualize, well, that could also be an option. And finally, it's also a data generating tool in the sense that a lot of organizations, they already have configuration manager. It's managing more than 165 million devices. So we will rely on config manager to give us a lot of data. And we also know where config manager is not giving us the information that we need. So we will provide the data logic to generate extra data. So we will generate data that will give us blue screen information. We'll generate data that will give us certificate information, that will give us the OneDrive information, and so on and so forth. But we won't be installing anything on your infrastructure. We'll just rely on what you have. So that is really Insight Analytics. So it's kind of a 3-in-1: data generating tool, gathering tool, and a visualization platform. With that in mind, let's go in and jump into a quick demo here. So just before this, I did spin up a small environment. So all the data that you see in here are kind of fresh. They are no more than a couple of hours old. And what I have when I set up the dashboard is I have a lot of information, and that information is provided to me in different views. And a view can be a security boundary. So in here, I'm looking at the global view, and I can look at my compliance data. I can look at my security data. I can look at the specific end user issues. So if we have any blue screens or any application crashes, and so on and so forth. And I can secure this so only European operators maybe can look at the EMEA view, where it's only global team members that can look at the global view. So you're in complete control of this. This is supporting role-based administration. Often when I look at a widget like this, it provides, sometimes there are a couple of questions that I would like to answer. So for instance, when I'm looking at my active clients here, I have 100%, but how many clients is that? So I can drill in by clicking on the widget. It will take me on premise to one of the 50 plus reports, and those reports will typically give me much more insight. So here, as I said, this is a brand new environment that I just spun up, so you can see information over the last couple of days. I've had 100% active clients. That tells me it's a demo environment. Otherwise, production won't look like this. And I can also go into my client activity here, and if I click here, I will just get another report with more detailed information about each of the clients, when they were last active, and so on and so forth. So for each of the widgets that you have, we will have a corresponding report that will give you more insight into that. Now, typically when we help onboard our customers, or when customers onboard themselves, they will go in and create a view where they can see compliance and security, and then based on what is our main focus, they might also go in and create a view that will give them insight to patch management. So how are we doing? October patches was just released. how am I doing? How long does it really take me to become 100% compliant? Because if I'm not 100% compliant, I'm not really compliant, am I? So in here, I'm looking at the compliance state, and I'm looking at the compliance state for each month, and it's easy for me to see that, okay, it takes me about a month to become 100% compliant. So looking at my data for September here, I can see I'm only 50% compliant. Again, it's a test environment. I can drill in, and then I can see, okay, so I've had one successful, and I have one that is in progress. And the one that is in progress, I'll be able to see if that one has a reboot pending or doesn't have a reboot pending. So you can see all of this information. And if I just look at my reasons, then I can also see here, well, I do have a device that is in a reboot pending mode right now. In a real production environment, the numbers here would never ever be 100%. You will always have some clients that are inactive. You will have clients that have WSUS issues. You might have clients that haven't scanned for updates within the week. You might have clients that haven't installed updates within the last month, and so on and so forth. So these numbers down here, they look really nice and pretty right now in my environment, but often that's not the case. And again, if I want to see what device I have that is right now in a pending reboot, I will go in and I can see, well, this is the non-compliant one. It installed updates, but the CM agent did put it in a pending reboot. So we get the insight like super fast. Another example is the performance-related examples that I mentioned. So if I go down to I have a view down here called performance, then this is giving me some insights into, how many blue screens have I had? Well, I've only had one blue screen here. This is a vanilla environment, but I do have a lot of applications, and a lot of these applications, they have a high impact on startup. I can see my startup time is 28 seconds, my login time, and that would be the login time for all devices in North America, is 67 seconds here, which is, I would say, just about average. It might be a second or 2 seconds slower than Europe, but that's still perfectly okay. So I quickly get a lot of insights, and I could just click here and then look at the reports that would give me the blue screen information and so on and so forth. But instead, I think I'll just go over here to my global, and then how do I create a widget? How do I visualize anything? So when you want to visualize, or when you want to modify the dashboard in here, you don't need any technical skills really. All you need is just permissions. So you'd go in, you create a new widget. If you have multiple groups, as I have up here, you'll just say, okay, I want to place the new widget in my security group. How many categories do you have? And a category is just a connector. So it could be a connector to your SCCM environment. It could be a connector to Intune. It could be a connector to something else. Here I have 3 different SCCM environments. So, it could be a server environment. It could be a test. It could be a Q&A. You can mix and match the information. Now, when you select an environment, depending on the connector, you'll get some predefined templates in here. So you can see I can visualize information about my application crashes, work hours lost there. I can visualize blue screens. I can visualize client health, client activity, all of my own baselines, all of my packages, applications, software updates, and so on and so forth. There is nothing within SCCM that you cannot visualize. So if I want to visualize, let's say I want to visualize a baseline, I can go in, select a baseline. We will provide you with a lot of baselines, and a baseline can be a check against something. So it could be, for instance, a check against who haven't performed a software update scan in a week. Do you have more than one deployment? So right here, I just have a deployment targeted to all workstations. What is my KPI? So when am I happy? 90%, or is it 95%? That depends on your environment. And then you go ahead and hit create. So what will happen right now is it will go ahead and ask the connector, can you please provide me with the data? and it usually takes any time between 30 and 45 seconds, because now we're taking from Azure into the on-prem environment. So with that, let me just move back here to the deck. So that was the quick demo. And as I mentioned, how it works, there will be a service in your environment. That service can be installed in the primary site server. It can be installed on any other server or workstation in your environment. That service is the connector that we communicate with. So we will typically send a query saying, hey, we want to see all of your non-WannaCry compliant devices, just a number. So the result of the query might be 85. So we will take the number 85, we will encrypt the data, and they will then be uploaded, synchronized to Azure. And then in Azure, the only thing you have is the value 85. On the other hand, once you click on that widget, there will be a link to a report that is on premise, and then you can see much more data about why is it only 85, what devices is it, and so on and so forth. So there's not a whole lot going on your infrastructure. We're just utilizing what you have already. So how do you get started? Well, you can sign up for a free trial. The free trial doesn't have any limitations. It will, however, ship with 3 or 4 reports. But besides that, there are no limitations. So you can create as many views as you want, as many groups. You can visualize as much as you want to do. I know for a lot of our customers, when they do sign up, because they can visualize everything within their environment, it can easily become a bit overwhelming. So figure out what's important to you, and then let's start there. So is it patching? Is it performance? Is it compliance? Is it security? It's a really good idea to define what's important and then get started. With that, Kim, I don't know if you've been watching the Q&A, but we have 4 or 5 minutes left for that.
We sure do. So we put together a couple of questions that customers ask us on a regular basis, and we thought that I could ask you, Kent, a couple of questions. So back to security and benefits, how can Insight Analytics prevent us as a company from being attacked by the next WannaCry or Petya?
So how can we that? So that's a good question. So first of all, this is a service. So we usually are aware of the the issues before they occur. So our team will define and develop new configuration items we will make available, and we'll make them available on a regular basis. But when we see something like WannaCry and when we see something like Petya, we'll make them available, like instantly. And first time we heard about WannaCry, we had a configuration item out within a couple of hours that would help our customers identify their weaknesses so they could go ahead and patch them. So that's really important. It is a service, and it's not like you're getting 100 CIs and never hear from us again. No, you will constantly get new configuration items, new reports, updates to the visualization platform.
Okay, thank you. So knowing the number of blue screens of death, what experience do we have in cost savings reducing the number of blue screens of death can give? So meaning, I think you understand the question, but utilizing our service, how can we provide cost savings with that BSOD reduction?
So first of all, we need to know about it. And a lot of our customers, when they come to us, they don't have any insight. They only get the feedback when they meet the end users in the hallways, during Christmas parties and what have you. So we have seen some customers where it is as much as 15% of their entire desktop fleet, they are actually blue screening without knowing anything about it. So identifying the root causes for the blue screens and then help them implement a solution to that. That typically will bring them from 15% down to something like 2-3%. Avoiding blue screens is totally that can be really hard because we have so many security tools. We have new operating systems coming out all the time. We have new devices and so on. But lowering the number from 15% down to something that is much more acceptable, that we have seen. And remember, each blue screen is very conservatively about 15 minutes lost work time. And there I'm very conservative with the 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So with regards to support and configuration, there's a couple of questions. Can Insight Analytics run with different views for different departments? For example, security, IT operations, service desk, and is it customizable?
Yeah, so that is that it can. Each view can be assigned to a specific group, and it can be Azure Active Directory integrated. So you don't have to go in and create any other new groups, or you can use the built-in security database that we have that ships. So if you don't have Azure Active Directory, then you can go ahead and create your own groups in our tool. And yeah, you can specify a view to one group.
Okay.
Or to multiple groups.
Can Insight Analytics give insight to both clients and servers?
Yeah, there is no difference.
Okay.
We treat them equally. So yeah, no difference at all.
Perfect. Next question. Can I make my own widgets based on my own PowerShell scripts?
Yeah, you can do that. So whatever you have in SCCM, if we talk SCCM, you can visualize. So your own packages, your own configuration items. So if you have a PowerShell script and you want to check something, you would most likely add that script to what is called a configuration item and visualize it. So all of your own hard work that you have put into the system, we will be able to visualize that.
Perfect. And one more question, and I think we're kind of out of time. So if a widget shows that a status is bad, can I kick off an automatic repair remediation?
Yeah. This is my favorite answer. It really depends. If it is a configuration item, and as I said, we will provide you with more than 100 configuration items. A lot of those configuration items also contain a feature to remediate, so to repair something, and we have that in there. We don't have it for everything, but we have it for most configuration items. So yeah, so a good example would be an insecure protocol, like do you have net bias enabled still? We will be able to disable that. Do you have SMB1 enabled still? We'll automatically be able to disable that whenever you tell us to. So you're still in complete control, obviously.
Okay, thanks. There's actually one customer asking a question. Will we be able to identify failed Windows 10 feature updates and the root cause?
Yeah.
Asked by Stefano.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Stefano. Yes, we will be able to do that. And I didn't show you here, but when we do Windows 10 projects, we typically build a Windows 10 dashboard as well, where we will see all the running task sequences we have had, the successes we have had within the last day, within the last week, and the errors, and what are the errors that we are seeing. So yeah, that is a super good example of how we can make use of the dashboard.
Perfect. And Stefano also had a question about subscription. So just so everyone knows, this is a service and it is licensed via subscription. And typically we do a yearly subscription, but we have some flexibility on that if someone really wants to have it monthly. And it's typically renewed yearly, but we can also do a 3-year term as well.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't get that question.
I think that's it for questions right now.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for joining, and those 30 minutes sure went by fast.
They did. And if anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. And Kent already gave you the link for the trial. So definitely please go download a trial if you're interested. And if you need help setting up and configuring that trial, we'll definitely help you out. Thank you all for your time.